Effective immediately, my mother said, her voice smooth as polished glass. Evan will assume the role of CEO. The air in the Apex Global Logistics boardroom turned instantly stale. I sat at the head of the mahogany table, my hands folded perfectly on my leather notebook. For 10 years, I had been the one sitting there. I had built this logistics empire while Evan was still failing his business school electives. I looked at him. My cousin, 32 years old, adjusting his silk tie like he was posing for a photo op. He had never negotiated a union contract. He had never walked a loading dock at 4 in the morning. We need strong optics for the IPO, my mother, Stacy, continued, refusing to meet my eyes. The market responds better to traditional leadership. Julia, we expect you to stay on as VP of Operations. To support him. Support. Not lead. Support. Panic is for people who don't have a contingency plan. I sat still. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I simply nodded my face, a mask of terrifying calm. Of course, I said. Congratulations, Evan. Have you ever been passed over for a promotion you deserve just because you didn't look the part? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. I didn't argue. I didn't pack a box of personal mementos or water the office plants one last time. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and walked out of the boardroom. The walk to my office felt like a funeral procession for my former life. I logged into my computer for the final time. My fingers flew across the keyboard, drafting a resignation letter that was 2 sentences long. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position as Vice President of Operations. I wish Apex Global Logistics the best. The email sent with a soft click. Then I did the only thing that mattered. I opened my personal cloud drive and permanently deleted the shadow file. It wasn't company property, it was my personal network. The birthdays of every Port Authority manager in Shanghai. The direct line to the union boss in Detroit who only picked up for me. The handwritten notes on how to soothe a furious client when a shipment was late. Evan wanted the title. He could have the title. But he wasn't getting the relationships. My purse felt lighter as I walked past my assistant Sarah, who looked up with wide eyes. Cancel my meetings, I told her. All of them. The elevator ride down to the garage was silent. I got into my car and drove. I didn't go home to grieve. I drove 2 blocks away, parked in a quiet alley, and dialed a number I had memorized but never called. Christopher, I said when he answered. Christopher ran Titan Logistics, our biggest competitor, the man my mother called the enemy. Julia, he said, his voice rough with surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure, poaching my drivers again? No, I said. I'm done poaching. I'm calling to talk about an acquisition. There was a pause on the line. Acquiring who? Apex, I said. I have a plan. It's going to take 6 months. The stock is going to drop. Hard. And when it does, I want us to be ready to buy the controlling stake for pennies on the dollar. Silence stretched. Then a low chuckle. I'm listening, he said. Meet me at the Drake in an hour, I told him. And bring your checkbook. I hung up and looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were dry. My hands were steady. I wasn't a victim. I was a CEO in waiting. I sat in the plush leather booth at the Drake, watching Christopher read through the dossier I had prepared. It was thick 10 years of data, my decade of sacrifice bound in black plastic. While he read, I let my mind drift back, not to the hurt but to the work. People think logistics is just moving boxes. It isn't. It's moving the world. I remembered the Christmas of 2015. A blizzard shut down O'Hare. We had $4 million of medical supplies stranded on the tarmac. Evan was skiing in Aspen. My mother was hosting a holiday gala. The warehouse was freezing, but I stayed there wearing 2 coats, coordinating a fleet of private trucks to drive through the storm. I didn't sleep for 36 hours. Then there was the union strike threat of 2018. Evan wanted to fire them all. I spent 3 days in a diner with the union reps drinking bad coffee, listening to their grievances about health care. We avoided the strike. We saved the quarter. My father, Gary, patted me on the back and said, "Good girl, not good executive, good girl," like I was a golden retriever who fetched the paper. I looked at Christopher. He was still reading, his brow furrowed. My mother, Stacy, she wasn't evil. That would be too simple. She was a gatekeeper. She believed in a world where men led and women supported. She had internalized that rule so deeply it became her religion. By appointing Evan, she wasn't just betraying me. She was protecting the only world she understood. She thought a male name on the door was armor. She didn't realize it was a target. This is thorough, Christopher said, closing the folder. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. You built their entire Asia-Pacific network from scratch. Yes, I said, and I know where every weakness is. Why come to me, he asked. You could go anywhere. Amazon, FedEx. Because I don't want a job, I said. I want justice. And I know you've been trying to crack the European market for 5 years. Apex has the contracts you need, but right now they're too expensive. I leaned forward. Evan is going to make mistakes. He's going to try to modernize too fast. He's going to cut costs and compliance because he thinks it's boring. And when he does, the stock is going to bleed. I need you to be ready with the capital when it hits rock bottom. Christopher tapped his fingers on the table. You're betting against your own family. I'm betting on competence, I corrected him. And right now my family is short on that. Okay, Christopher said. He extended a hand. Let's burn it down. I shook his hand. It wasn't a handshake of friendship. It was a merger of interests. The drive home that night felt lighter than it had in years. The invisible weight of expectation, the need to be the good daughter, the reliable niece, the fixer was gone. I walked into my apartment, poured a glass of wine, and sat by the window. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Hey, cuz? Need the password for the secure server. Mom says you changed it. I didn't reply. I took a sip of wine. Let him figure it out. Let him call IT. Let him realize that the magic password was me. The unraveling didn't happen all at once. It happened in slow, agonizing degrees. Evan's first week was a masterclass in the Dunning-Kruger effect. He walked in with the unearned confidence of a man who has never failed because he's never actually tried. The town hall meeting on Monday was a spectacle. Words like synergy and disruption filled the air. He announced a complete rebranding. New logo, new colors. He fired the compliance officer, Mrs. Higgins. She had been with the company for 20 years. Old school, he called her. We need fresh eyes. Fresh eyes. That's what they always say right before they walk off a cliff. I watched it all from my living room. I still had access to the industry forums. The rumors started by Wednesday. Apex shipments delayed. Customs paperwork missing. Who is running the show over there? On Friday, Stacy called me. Julia, she said. Her voice was tight. We're having some teething issues. Evan can't find the vendor contracts for the Shanghai route. That's unfortunate, I said. I was watering my plants. Don't be like that. You know where they are. Just tell me. I don't work there anymore, Mom. I'm sure the CEO can handle it. You are abandoning your family, she snapped. After everything we did for you, you're being selfish. Selfish. The favorite word of people who want to use you. I'm not abandoning you, I said calmly. I'm letting you lead. Isn't that what you wanted? Traditional leadership? I hung up. By the second week, the stock had dropped 4 points. Not a crash, just a wobble. The market was nervous. Evan gave an interview to a trade magazine. He sounded arrogant. He dismissed the dip as market volatility. He smiled that practiced empty smile. He was an empty suit. A mannequin in a boardroom. He didn't know that the Shanghai contracts weren't in a folder. They were built on a relationship I had nurtured for 6 years with a man named Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen didn't do business with companies. He did business with people. And when I didn't call him for his birthday that week, he noticed. I sat in my home office, watching the ticker symbol APX. It blinked red. Down another point. I opened my laptop and started a video call with Christopher. It's starting, I said. I see it, he replied. Do we move yet? No, I said. Not yet. Wait for the quarterly report. Wait for the Atlas contract renewal. You're cold, Julia, he said. There was admiration in his voice. I'm not cold, I said. I'm accurate. I closed the laptop. My mother sent me a text. A picture of me and Evan as kids playing in the sandbox. We miss you, it said. I looked at the photo. I saw a little girl building a castle, and a little boy kicking it over because he was bored. I deleted the message. I wasn't rebuilding the castle this time. The acquisition plan was simple, brutal, and completely legal. I called it the Titan Strategy. I stood in front of Christopher and his board of directors in a private conference room in Geneva. We weren't hiding anymore. We were hunting. Apex's stock is currently trading at $42 a share, I said, pointing to the screen. That valuation is based on 2 things, legacy contracts and projected growth from the new rebranding initiative. Both are illusions. The slide changed. A timeline appeared. In 3 months, the Atlas contract comes up for renewal. This is an $85 million government logistics deal. It requires a specific security clearance and a compliance audit that takes 6 weeks to prepare. I used to start that audit in January. It is now March. Evan hasn't even hired a replacement for the compliance officer he fired. Christopher leaned forward. So they're going to miss the deadline. They're not just going to miss it, I said. They're going to fail the audit. And when they lose Atlas, the market will panic. The stock will drop to $12. That's when we buy. A board member raised his hand. What about the family? Won't they fight back? They won't have the cash, I explained. My mother leveraged her personal shares to secure a loan for the rebranding. When the stock tanks, the bank will issue a margin call. She'll have to sell, and we'll be the ones buying. The room was silent. This wasn't just business. It was an autopsy. You're dismantling your inheritance, one of the directors said quietly. I'm liquidating a bad investment, I replied, so I can build a better one. We spent the next 6 hours structuring the capital. Shell companies, private equity partners. By the time we left, the trap was set. I flew back to Chicago feeling like a ghost. I drove past the Apex headquarters on my way home. The lights were on in the executive suite. Evan was probably up there picking out new carpet swatches, completely unaware that the ground beneath him was already gone. My phone rang. It was Stacy. I let it go to voicemail. Julia, please call me. We need to get your input on something. Input. Not leadership. Not help. Input. She wanted me to give her the answers for free so she could pass them to Evan. I deleted the voicemail. The time for input was over. It was time for impact. The crash didn't happen with a bang. It happened with a fax. On a Tuesday morning in April, the Department of Defense sent a notification to Apex Global Logistics. Due to failure to meet compliance standards, the Atlas contract would not be renewed. It was awarded to a competitor, Titan Logistics. The news hit the wire while my coffee was still hot. Apex Global Logistics loses government contract. Stock plummets 30% in pre-market trading. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Texts from former colleagues, emails from headhunters, and 12 missed calls from my mother. I watched the ticker on CNBC. APX, $28, $24.50, $19. It was a free fall. The analysts were brutal. Leadership failure, operational negligence. A legacy company that forgot how to do logistics. Evan went on TV to do damage control. It was a disaster. He looked sweaty, defensive. He blamed bureaucratic red tape. He blamed the economy. He blamed everyone but himself. We are confident in our new direction, he stammered. This is just a hiccup. It wasn't a hiccup. It was a heart attack. By Friday, the stock was at $14. The bank issued the margin call on Stacy's loan. I called Christopher. Now I said, Titan Logistics initiated a hostile takeover bid at $18 a share. It was a premium over the current price, but a steal compared to the company's actual value. The board of directors, terrified of losing everything, bypassed Stacy and Evan. They accepted the offer. It was over in 48 hours. The company my grandfather built, the company my father expanded, the company I ran for 10 years. It now belonged to Titan. And Titan belonged to Christopher. And Christopher had a new partner. I sat in my home office, looking at the signed acquisition papers. My name was on the bottom line. Julia Morgan, Chief Executive Officer to Tangent Apex Group. My doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was Stacy. She looked older than I had ever seen her. Her perfect hair was messy. Her eyes were red. She wasn't there to yell. She was there to beg. The door opened. Stacy walked into my office like a refugee entering a foreign embassy. She looked around at the unfamiliar furniture, the framed acquisition papers, the view she no longer owned. Julia, she said. Her voice was thin. Thank God. Evan is overwhelmed. The Atlas contract. It's a disaster. I heard, I said. I didn't offer her a seat. We need you back, she said. Just temporarily. As a consultant. Or acting CEO. We'll pay you whatever you want. Double your old salary. Just until we stabilize the stock. I looked at her. She was doing it again. Even now, with the ship sinking, she was trying to put me on the glass cliff. She wanted me to take the helm during the storm, risk my reputation to save the company, and then I knew it in my bones, once the waters were calm, she would find a way to bring Evan back. Or another man. You want me to clean up the mess, I said, so Evan can look like a hero later. No, she said too quickly. We just need competence. You know this business better than anyone. I do, I agreed. That's why I know it's already over. What do you mean? I'm not coming back as a consultant, Mom. I'm not coming back as an employee. The file on my desk was heavy with victory. I picked it up and slid the acquisition papers across the mahogany surface toward her. I'm the CEO of Tangent Apex Group, I said. We bought the controlling stake this morning. I own the company. Stacy stared at the papers. Her hands shook as she picked them up. She read the lines. She saw the numbers. She saw my signature next to Christopher's. You, she whispered. You did this. You destroyed your own family's legacy. No, I said. I saved it from you. She looked up at me. There was no anger in her eyes anymore, just fear. The realization that the world she understood, the world where she was the gatekeeper and I was the help, was gone. What happens to Evan? She asked. He's fired, I said, effective immediately. And me. The new board votes on the chairperson tomorrow, I said. I suggest you update your resume. She stood there for a long moment. Then she turned and walked out. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. The next morning, the Apex boardroom felt different. The air was cleaner. The new board was seated. Christopher was there smiling. Evan's chair was empty. Stacy's chair was empty. I took my seat at the head of the table. Good morning, I said. Let's get to work. We spent the next 3 hours outlining the integration plan. We rehired Mrs. Higgins, the compliance officer. We reinstated the vendor contracts I had built. We stabilized the stock. When the meeting was adjourned, I stayed behind. I walked over to the window. The view showed a city in motion. Trucks were driving down the highway, planes were taking off from O'Hare, ships were navigating the lake. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just watching the movement, I was directing it. I thought about my father. I thought about the good girl comments. I thought about the years I spent making myself smaller so Evan could feel big. I took a deep breath. It was over. The old world had burned, and from the ashes I had built something that was finally undeniably mine. Sometimes you have to let the old world burn to build a new one. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of justice and resilience.